Novi here with another speed paint, but gasp, it's not a pony? I know, shocking, but I do have a few human speed paints here and there, although they are a few years old, or just art. But I've been struggling a bit with a portion of my Daybreaker redesign, and decided I needed a little break from the ponies. Not anything crazy long, just a break. So I decided to rewatch a couple of the cartoons that were pillars of my childhood. That being My Little Pony, Monster High, Bratz, and of course the topic of this video, Winx Club. As you already know, Winx Club was a cartoon that ran from 2004 to technically 2019, with a few soft reboots and movies in between. After was a live action that I'm not going to mention more than this. But this series, along with, as I mentioned, Bratz, Monster High, etc., it shaped my childhood and somewhat shaped my artistic style, something I've been pushing a little more as I'm trying to find my groove with human and human-esque OCs again. I had actually designed this OC after rewatching the OG dub. Adult me has opinions, but I acknowledge that it was a product of its time, although that's no excuse. The less said and better, just thinking about the live action makes me upset, so I'm going to ignore it. So, as I always do when I fall or re-fall into a fandom, is create an OC that has lore that intertwines with some canon. The lore is so messed up in Winx anyway that it doesn't really matter. Honestly, I could make a random claim about some piece of lore or magic or whatever, and I bet you there's a 50% chance it's actually real. This is Desa. Desa is just a variation of Iridescent. I almost went with the name Iridescence, but that's somebody else. I drew her 4 times, and yes, I'm counting it as 4, even though some of it was just redrawing over a portion, but I'm counting it as 4. I drew her initially in an attempt of the original Winx style, which I have learned I am not very good at mimicking styles. I think at like a glance you might be like, oh, okay, it's kind of Winx-ish, but I also did my style as well. Anyway, to get that rambling done and over with, let's get the backstory out of the way. Desa was the younger sister of Scarlet, the Fairy of Red. Scarlet was a member of the Rainbows, creative, I know, whose members were herself, Amber, Marigold, Forest, Celeste, Indy, and Violet. Each name is a shade respective of the Roy Jabiv, although I cheated with the last 2. Technically, Amber and Marigold showed up both for yellow and orange, but that's neither here nor there. The group of fairies is responsible for all the color in the world. Desa, in particular, will reflect that color, her name being, again, a shortened version of Iridescent. If any of the rainbows or Desa were to die with no air, there is no color. More specifically, if Amber were to die, there would be no orange, Marigold, no yellow, etc., etc. Objectively, Desa would be the most important, as without her, the color wouldn't spread at all. While biological heir will only access their powers once their predecessor dies, the powers can be passed on to another non-direct heir through an extremely wrong and extremely dangerous ritual. This is specifically the case with Desa. One of the rainbows, unsure of who right now, but not Scarlet, found a ritual that would guarantee all 7 of them eternal life. The keyword is 7, and it would strip Desa of not only her powers, but her life force. Once Scarlet became aware of this plan, she pretended to go along with it. She didn't know who in her group was aware of the plan, who would oppose it if she were to tell them, or who would go along with it. When the group began the process of creating the rainbow as they usually did, the ritual began, and Scarlet made her move. Instead of funneling Desa's life force and magic into themselves, she funneled all of theirs into her. It corrupted the rainbows, turning them into monsters that fled to all corners of the magical realm, and left her a sad, terrified, and very lonely fairy. Scarlet made sure this was a public rainbow, that all who had gathered would know it was her fault, not her baby sister that she had already failed to protect. Desa, now all-powerful and immortal, was all alone. So, if we get to Season 1, Episode 1, she would be old. Not exactly sure. Definitely older than Faragonda and some of the other elder fairies we have seen. Just know that she's been around for a long while. If she were to have a season in the show, it would be about the Winx finding and purifying the rainbows and them earning a Prismix form, one of each correlating with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Not sure where this would slip in between what season, but there it is. The season would end with all the rainbows being saved and some of Desa's power being returned to them, although she would still retain most of them. In the season finale, she would use her Prismix form to beat the main villain of the season, would barely survive, and then would go on a long, well-overdue vacation with her husband, appearing in later seasons as cameos and postcards she would send to Faragonda. I ship her semi with a character I may or may not have had a crush on as a kid, and maybe I found out that in the comics, which I found out there were comics, he has a girlfriend. Something I didn't find out until writing the script. So yeah, in the cartoon version only, they are married. Now, there are extensive drawbacks to all the magical power she has. In fact, actually, on most days, she's fine. Just fine. In the earlier years, after all the magic was funneled into her, not so much. She was prone to magical outbursts and general instability. She often found it feeling like her skin was stretched too tight, her bones would rattle, and her head aches. It was a rough few decades until she was able to regulate it. This has left her with the drawback that if she uses any other fairy form besides her most basic form, she can be left bedridden for days, if not weeks, on a particularly powerful form. Her most powerful form would be her Prismix form, and has enough power to be realm-ending. There's a very real chance that if she uses it, it could destroy her, regardless of her immortality. So her Winx form, for lack of a better name, is the one she's in most often, and is the one she is most comfortable with. Personality-wise, she is a little bit on the motherly side, concerned about these teenagers being thrown into awful and dangerous situations over and over and over again. This is a little part of her. Also think of Rarity from MLP, with a little bit of the dramatics and the personality, the presence. She's an actress, a model, anything she can do to maybe feel a little more put together. Desa has a lot of trauma from the rainbow, and this version of Desa is, and I'm hesitant to use this word, better. This is post-trauma, post-therapy, post-finally coming to terms with everything. She isn't 100%, more like 75 to 85% better. There are bad days, there always will be, but they're less frequent. Headcanon, but also possibly canon, that fairies' age is dependent on how often they use their final fairy forms, i.e. Enchantix. The less they use that form, the more they age. They still age in their base form, but stop once they reach their Enchantix, so long as they transform. In Desa's case, even if she never transformed again, which she very rarely used her Enchantix or other form, she doesn't age. Being alive for so long and so many trends coming and going that she kind of loses track of what's relevant. Her fashion style is something she has always kept to date on. She'll pretty much say like the fairy equivalent of groovy, rad. She's stopped caring a little bit. It's hard to keep track of everything, so it would be kind of used as more like a humorous way. Anyway, now that all the lore is out of the way, time for the design details as I draw her in my style. Initially, Desa was born with black hair, but the ritual that she was forced into to become the Fairy of Iridescence turned it white. I wanted to give her a bit of a regal-ish style, something rich, something not quite royal fancy, but, you know, you look and you see money. I didn't do any jewelry. I didn't particularly want to. I couldn't figure out what I really wanted to do for jewelry. I almost wanted to give her rainbow earrings, but then they felt a little out of place. It might be something I change later, but for now, I would say she just doesn't wear it. Her top is definitely risque. If it were in the show, it would be more of just like a crop top, but obviously shows a little more in this art. Her jacket is supposed to be one of those semi-clear ones with a stained glass pattern. I couldn't quite get it to look the way I wanted to, and if, as I have a bad habit of creating OCs, drawing them once and then never again, I draw her again, I will try it again, with hopefully better results. Her Winx form wings are supposed to be stained glass-like, with light filtering through to cast colorful shadows or something. I do actually have in process her Enchantix and Prismix form, which hopefully I will finish and post. I have started using a new editing program, so hopefully the video quality will go back up. So yeah, that was a video and a half. I should have my Daybreaker and Nightmare Moon up soon, but this was a nice and well-needed break. And this has been Novi, Space out.